Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema, directors, genres, actors, or franchises. It doesn't matter, because it's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And this month we're going through the Mummy franchise.
We are.
But we finished the Mummy franchise proper with Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but there is another.
There is. There's one that was going to begin the Dark Universe.
A reboot.
A reboot of all the Universal horror films.
The Mummy.
Starring Tom Cruise.
Directed by Alec Kurtzman. Came out in 2017. And
it killed the Dark Universe.
Yes, it made a lot of promises that could not be kept.
No, it did not. And we did not go back to Hamanatra.
We did not. We went to Iraq, Egypt in a flashback 4 times.
A lot of England.
A lot of England. Yeah. Okay, should we just open the discussion up right here, right now? This was the Dark Universe movie, like the first one in that genre or franchise.
Yeah, this was the first one. I think it was the third trailer where they introduced that this was going to be the beginning of the Dark Universe, which was exciting at the time because who doesn't love Universal monsters? And
also, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, and probably will be the biggest thing on the planet for cinema. The DCU was kicking off, and
for
Warner Brothers, varying results, but was for the most part a successful cinematic universe financially, at least.
And then you have Universal's Avengers, the Fast and the Furious
franchise, which has its spin-offs and is again one of the highest grossing franchises of all time. So everyone's like, "Oh, Universal throwing their hat in the game.
We love monsters."
Right, and they own the majority of they own all the Universal, all the classic monsters that you know and love, and all their looks and IPs. Because the thing is most of those monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, they're public domain. Yep. But when you think about Frankenstein with the bolt neck and the flat top, Universal owns that version of Frankenstein.
They were the studio that created the monsters.
But we get this movie, which I think retroactively they said Dracula Untold was supposed to be the first in that franchise.
Because, if you're going to kick it back to the originals, Dracula started it.
Yeah, but it was retroactively, and then the movie didn't do all that well, and they were like, no, this is going to be the real start, and we have a real A-list actor, and we have Tom Cruise leading the charge, which, confusing?
Yeah.
This doesn't seem like a Tom Cruise movie.
No, it doesn't. Don't get me wrong, Tom Cruise is a great actor. His movies are really fun, enjoyable.
He has a limited range. He's not a great thespian, but he makes fun movies.
He makes really fun movies, and that's what I kind of felt like. It's Tom Cruise playing Tom Cruise in this movie. He's just immortal.
I don't think he's even Tom Cruise playing Tom Cruise. He's Tom Cruise playing Chris Pratt, honestly.
I can
that
see that
snarky wise ass. That seems way more something Chris Pratt would do than Tom Cruise would do. And it just might be a thing where this character that they decided to write for him, I really don't know where they were aiming for, because this doesn't feel like I don't really understand the goal of the movie, honestly. It doesn't feel like this is the Iron Man launching us off into a whole new cinematic universe.
No.
This doesn't feel like a remake of any of the previous Mummy films or incarnations.
No, they kept trying to, tie it to the original Mummy, not the Karloff one, but the Brendan Fraser one.
Yeah, the Stephen Sommers 1999 Mummy.
1999 classic. Tom Cruise was offered the role of Rick.
Oh, in the original.
In the original. And I don't know why he turned it down, or maybe scheduling. So maybe they were trying to kind of, come full circle. Okay, we finally have him. Let's do this. And it's I think that's what makes Brendan Fraser so special was, he becomes his characters. And, he is Rick O'Connell. And this movie, Tom Cruise doesn't really feel like he's his character.
Yeah, he's not this Nick character. Here's the thing. The original Mummy film, or the 99 Mummy film, worked because it knew what it was.
It was organic.
It was more of an organic piece. They were like, we're going to make a nice adventure film. It's going to be pulpy. It's going to be, a little have horror elements to it, but at the end of the day, we're making a homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're
Mm-hmm.
making a homage to pulp adventure serials. And it's gonna have this head nod to the Boris Karloff mummy film that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one would really say the Boris Karloff mummy film is an A-list, like, this is the best of the Universal classics.
No, I mean, when it's, lined up with the trio of the original monsters, the mummy kind of gets pushed down because we only get the mummy for 5 minutes and we get Karis for the rest of the movie, which is cool because Boris Karloff is a great actor and we love Karis, your Emotep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why it's like in 99 we get so much more of the mummy because we want to see that. We want to be afraid and see his, regeneration. And in this movie, they take a different spin to it.
Yeah.
We have a female that is now the mummy.
Oh, that is exactly what cinema wanted. They wanted a hot mummy for their villain. That's what they wanted.
I remember that in the trailer. I was like, oh, so we're trying to get that hot cast again.
Which...
There's no Ardeth Bay in this, sorry.
Yeah, there's varying
if
successes.
There's no Ardeth Bay, I don't want to talk. If there's no Rick O'Connell, I don't want to talk.
Varying levels of success of hot mummy casting in this.
Yes. No Rachel Weisz, I don't want to talk.
I mean, we get a lot of references, but they're few and far between. But you know what? You want to just get into the movie proper because this movie, I think I said this off mic. This movie is the cinematic equivalent of the middle of the road. Mm-hmm. It's not good. It's not bad. It's like okay to a fault. And the plot kind of goes with that.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place. It's like there were so many cool things that they put into the movie, and I feel like they kind of dropped the ball. It's like you could have run this way with it, but you didn't.
Mm-hmm. There's also 3 separate timelines you have to care about for the plot to make total sense to you. Because the whole... Okay, here's how the movie opens. After we get the Dark Universe logo, which #promises never kept. They open with... They're in England. They have the Knights Templar. They're being buried with...
They have the Crusaders.
Yeah, the Crusaders. They're being buried, and then it immediately cuts to excavation in present day, and they discover... Oh, here's this tomb. And then the mysterious man in black comes in and he sees something on the wall. And then we immediately flash back to ancient Egypt and we explain the mummy princess. And I'm like, wait a minute. So we had a flashback to England, then a present day moment, and then an immediate flashback back to Egypt. And I'm like, why don't we just start in Egypt with a voiceover?
Exactly.
Like we've done with every other mummy movie.
I know. I'm like, why are we breaking the recipe for this movie? It's been the thing. I mean, even in Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, the film itself wasn't great, but the opening was great because it follows the recipe. We go back to the beginning. We explain why we're on this path and how we're going to, how our heroes are going to save the day.
And the other thing is, like, don't get me wrong, because, the mysterious man in black, it's Russell Crowe. Yes. And Russell Crowe's got a nice, demanding voice when he's giving this sort of thing.
I love Russell Crowe in this movie.
Honestly... We're going to get into that. I think he's like the best part of this movie, like easily.
That scene.
Well, we're going to get into it. But the whole thing is, Russell Crowe's doing this like voiceover and it's really big and grandiose and epic. And I'm like, why didn't we just start here? Mm-hmm. And, the whole thing with the Templar and the jewels and all this other things. I'm like, this feels like something that you're plot dumping to me in the beginning of the movie. So you can maybe, like, set it up quicker later on. But I'm like, this could have all just been one long flashback storytelling things. Like, oh, after she died, the Templars invaded the land and broke the jewel away. The jewel was buried, and the dagger was lost. And then we go into the mummy, like that title sequence. This could have just been structured much more efficiently and give you that, feeling of... oh, this is old, mysterious, and we're going to have this big, globe-trotting adventure. Granted, the mummy we're seeing is far more of, how would you say, evil bitch? Than like, Emotep's, oh, I killed the pharaoh for love, because what is it? She kills her father,
She kills her father,
her infant brother, and
the stepmother.
and the stepmother.
And it's like,
and is about to kill her boyfriend mid-coitus.
Well, yeah, she's killing her boyfriend so that she could bring Set, the god of death, into his body.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, I think they could have expanded that a bit more, because it's just, ooh, my daughter, she's gonna, rule the land and she's so talented. And then, oh no, there's a new baby brother that's born. And obviously the solution is kill. It's like, we need to see her more heartbroken, more devastated that, my dad who has loved me, no, now he really loves this child because he's gonna be the next ruler. Just show that, that anger, that...
Just trying to establish some level of sympathy.
Some empathy for her that, it's like, you're getting cast aside because you're not male.
And maybe it could be a thing where it's like, oh, she does this, she asks for this, power of Set so she can rule, and maybe that corrupts her or something. But no, she's just evil out the gate.
It jumps very fast, where it's just like, show us kind of this breakdown of this person that, it's like, well, you were, getting me ready to rule the land, and now it's, I've been cast aside for a baby.
And, like going back to the 99 cinematic classic Mummy, Imhotep, bad guy, evil throughout the thing. His motivations, though, are love. And when he, kills the pharaoh in the beginning of the movie, he's like, he's doing it so he can be with Anck-su-namun, the woman he loves. And when she dies, he's like, I will travel through all the realms of time to find you again. I don't think that's a line in this. That might be a line from Dracula.
That is from Dracula, yes. I've traveled oceans of time to find you, yes.
Which, perfect line.
One of the greatest lines ever.
Should have been in The Mummy, by the way. And I'm like, that's... Like, that I get. Like, that's why I have always found Imhotep an interesting villain. Because if you boil it down, he's evil. He's a bastard. But he has he's motivated.
Yeah.
His motivations are this pure kind of love. And that's why Mummy Returns is like, oh, that love was never real. And that's why I'm like, oh, they should have brought it back for Tomb of the Dragon Emperor so you can complete that arc. That's, like, I would have loved that.
Or at least a cameo.
Yeah, but... Again, we're getting onto the whole thing of why this movie is this movie's villain doesn't feel nearly as fleshed out. It is generically evil mummy.
That, and we're trying to really pull into her mummy that, she kind of has like a zombie-ish kind of vibe going, kind of a grudge kind of going. She moves a lot different than Imhotep moved.
Yeah, it's more like feral, and it's a different thing of like the monster they're going for is different.
Yeah.
But, that's the flashback we get.
Yeah. We
get the title card, The Mummy. And then we are now in present-day Iraq. And
I know that, when they make the discovery there, it's like, why would, this Egyptian, tomb or, be found in Iraq, but...
Well, because it's an ancient Mesopotamia, and, we're talking 5,000 years ago, and we're going to get into that, because before this, we get introduced to our hero. Yes. We get introduced to Nick, played by Tom Cruise, treasure hunter for the U.S. military. Kinda, sorta, not really. I don't really understand his job.
Yeah, it's never really, discussed what he is. It's like, well, he's a soldier, but
he's a globetrotting like treasure hunter. He's like does recon for the Army Rangers, but it seems like he's almost a contractor. Yeah, because he's talking to like the military guy, but the military is written out of this movie. Like I'm looking 3 bullet points after this one.
Yeah,
and you get this sense that okay, he's this guy who has this lust for adventure, and he's only joined the military so he can travel across the land and hunt for treasure and sell it on the black market because he's a thief and a scoundrel. But it doesn't feel right. I mean, his who is it? Vail, played by Jake Johnson.
Jake Johnson, yes.
Who
from New Girl?
From New Girl. Who I know this actor. I like him. He has a nice kind of funny wise ass, when he complains, it's funny, it's not annoying, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like this. He's like a nice little sidekick. And but like Tom Cruise just comes off as like, I am really not right for this role, guys, but I'm gonna try my best.
It's like, when has Tom Cruise ever needed a sidekick?
I don't know. I mean, that was The Outsiders, right? You know, he had all the kids, you know, when he was playing in The Outsiders, I guess. I don't what is it? In Top Gun, he had his wingman. He had Goose.
Talk to me, Goose.
Talk to me, Goose. But yeah, like we get to see Tom Cruise and he's trying to play up this, I'm an adventurer, I'm kind of a wise ass roguish type.
And it's like, no, not really.
And they do the whole almost like generic, guys, don't, like, Vail, don't worry, we're gonna slip in, slip out, no one will be the wiser. Smash cut into them being shot at by ISIS through this village in this massive chase that ends with them on top of a roof, and they're like, I think we're gonna die up here, I'm so sorry, oh no. And then they drop an airstrike on the village, everyone scatters,
building collapses, and then we have the reveal of the tomb.
Yes, this giant tomb
that this little town is that is built on top of it.
It's this massive underground complex. This looks like it took years for them to make.
And, you know, with it being in present-day Iraq, so, you know, Mesopotamia at the time that it was built, I'm like, okay, so did they move the mummy's body so far away from, you know, Egypt because she is just so bad, we're trying to exile her, we're trying to erase her from history? That's
the vibe I'm getting, is they want her erased completely from history because she summoned Set and killed the pharaoh, but was still gonna, like, dedicate hundreds of thousands of slaves and man hours to building one of the most elaborate temples you could possibly imagine underground.
That rains mercury.
That was a first, which I think that is a thing in, like, that ancient Egyptian culture where mercury was meant to ward off evil spirits. I'm like, that's cool. But goddamn, that's a lot of mercury. Like, when who is it? Dr. Halsey, Vail, and Tom Cruise's character Nick, when they go down in there, they should all, like, die of mercury poisoning breathing the air.
Yeah.
But I guess that brings us to this. We meet Dr. Halsey, Jenny, blonde woman who will work for Scale, and she's, what is it? She has this relationship with Tom Cruise's Nick, and
they hooked up one time. I'm gonna keep getting confused with Nick because Jake Johnson, his character in New Girl, is Nick. So I'm just like, wait. I'm like, okay, we're not talking about that. Okay.
Yeah, and it is kind of confusing because when you see Tom Cruise in this movie, you're just like, well, that's just Tom Cruise. He's not playing a character. He's playing the same kind of. He's Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah, we're ready for him to take off running. I'm doing the running right now.
We did get the running earlier.
We do.
But we have them. We meet Dr. Halsey. She is this, you know, no nonsense. I'm a archaeologist working for the military to save priceless artifacts from being destroyed by terrorists.
We're getting shades of Evie through her. You know, she's walking through the tomb ahead of the two guys, and she's, you know, oh, there were scarabs here. There's this. You know, we're beginning the Easter eggs.
Yeah, we're understanding that, oh, she knows all of this, and Nick is the muscle, and it's that dynamic, and you have Vail, who's kind of this...
The comedic
relief. I'm like, okay, like, they're establishing a trio of characters for everyone to play off of, which, okay, you know...
harkens back to 99.
Which harkens back to 99, but it also harkens to, like, any reasonable, like, action movie. You have your straight man action hero, the beautiful woman who knows more than they do, who's leading them, and you have the comedic relief who's there to, like, break the tension so you can still have action and comedy and romance. Solid trilogy of characters, works 900% of the time.
It's a solid recipe.
And they get down into the tomb, they find the sarcophagus, and they're like, we gotta get it out of here. There's a sandstorm a-coming.
And then we have Nick and Vail that are immediately, ooh, let's start taking stuff from the dead. Which is always a big no-no.
Yes, because mummies curses.
Yes.
But, you know, it goes into them being like, well, they're not good guys. They're roguish treasure hunters. And
that's never established.
It's kind of sort of... I mean, they called Tom Cruise a thief like 15 times in this movie. And it's like, okay, he tried to steal like some gold rings, but then Halsey stops him, and then he never does. So mostly Vail is the thief we see on screen, and they try and show that Tom Cruise is not like a good guy totally, but it's like none of it rings so true. But okay, they raise the mummy. We see this big, mythical thing where Nick is chosen as the mummy's,
The chosen one.
the chosen one, right? The mummy's like, I will do my ritual to you and bring you back as Set, the god of the dead, so he may walk the earth. And, cool. Okay, he's cursed by the mummy.
Yeah.
At first, he's like, well, this vision is because I'm in a room full of like
mercury. I'm seeing things.
I'm in this room of hundreds of thousands of gallons of mercury. I'm probably just tripping balls. But they raise it. They raise the sarcophagus. They put it in this plane. They're gonna fly to England, I guess, to study it or get it out of the war zone. And a sandstorm is a coming. And by the way,
well, I mean,
how long is the plane ride from the heart of Iraq to England?
I'd imagine that's a long flight.
I would think so too. Couple like 3, 4, 5 hours.
However, I'm gonna go back to the tomb because she is beneath this pool of mercury, and there's this very elaborate band around all these statues of Anubis that are watching over her and making sure she stays there.
Yeah.
And we have Jenny who's, I need to read this, I need to study this, and Tom Cruise is like, nah, fuck that, let me shoot this rope and let's get her out of the water.
It is one of the dumbest things because you want this sarcophagus to stay in the pool of mercury. Why would you rig up a system to immediately lift the sarcophagus out of the pool of mercury? That's another thing. I get you want this big, like, noble thing of, oh, we have all these runes and hieroglyphs to, bind the spirit. But I'm like, guys, just dig a little deeper, put a bunch of mercury into a thing, and shove rocks over it. Just make no elaborate effort. Just bury it and forget it. All right.
Even the sarcophagus, I'm kind of like, that looks more like a siren on it than it does, something that's ancient Egyptian.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the design of the sarcophagus. It's the one thing I give this movie is I like the design of how the mummy looks with the hieroglyphs like tattooed all over her body. I like the whole thing of like how the sarcophagus looks because it doesn't look Egyptian. It looks alien and way more evil. And I'm like, okay, that's different. That's a different take that I think is kind of cool.
Because you really want, ancient aliens.
Ancient Aliens is one of the best sitcoms on History Channel, but they raise the alien. They raise the alien. They raise the mummy. They're flying off in their plane. The sandstorms are coming, and this is where we get some drama between Nick and Doc Halsey, and they're like, "Oh well, like I thought you cared for me," and he's like, "I do," and she's like, "Why'd you steal from me? I never lied to you." Their romance is a brewing.
And you have Vail that's, slowly dying because he was bitten by one of the spiders in the tomb.
Yes.
One of the camel spiders, and I forgot completely about the spiders.
Oh, God.
So it freaked me out when I saw them come out. I was like, oh, no. This is horrible.
Yeah, he gets bitten by a spider. He dies, turns into a zombie, kills the sergeant on the plane.
Yeah.
Cuts up, like, untethers the sarcophagus. And he's like attacking everyone else on the plane, and then Tom Cruise and Nick kills him, shoots him 3 times, drops him dead.
Yeah.
And right when this happens, the birds attack.
Yes. We're going back to the locusts. We're doing all of that. Whereas, oh no, we've raised this mummy, and now the world must suffer.
Oh yes, the curse of the plagues of Egypt are upon us. But the birds come in, they bring the plane down.
Yes.
And as the plane's going down, this is where, if anyone remembers the trailer for this movie that got released, where they didn't mix the sound right.
And it was just Tom Cruise grunting.
Yes, that's one of the famous things about this movie was, I think it's happened before, but this is probably the biggest movie it happened for. They released a trailer, and this scene was in it where Tom Cruise, and all them, they're being thrown around this
Mhm.
airplane as it's coming down, and the audio, they only released their dialogue,
Yeah.
which is Tom Cruise going, "Whoa, ah, ooh," and that's it. There's no sound of the plane noises. There's
Nope.
no sound of like wind. There's no sound of their bodies hitting anything. It's just their voices.
No music.
No music. It got released on YouTube as like their official trailer, and I don't know how anyone missed it. And but this is that scene.
Well, it was also released during an IMAX screening.
Oh, that's
So people were
bad.
sitting there listening to it.
People, if you only saw that trailer, you probably thought this was a comedy.
Yeah, you're like, what is this? But I gotta see it.
It is. That's like that movie Top Secret with like Val Kilmer, where
Oh, you love that movie.
I do love that. That movie is so funny. But they're like sneaking around the encampment, and they're walking through like these leaves, and they're rustling, and Val Kilmer just like, guys, be quiet. And they're like, okay. And then they go back to walking just as normal, but they just cut the leaf sound out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just a really funny little gag.
It's a bit.
It's a bit. In this, it was an accident. But it's going down. Tom Cruise or Nick manages to get a parachute on Dr. Halsey and, sends her outside the plane, releases the parachute so she can survive.
Yeah.
And then the plane crashes.
Yes.
White light. Silence. Sad music comes in. Dr. Halsey is the lone survivor, and the English doctors, because they crashed in England because a 9-hour flight, hey, whatever.
Yeah.
We need you to identify the bodies. And she's like, oh, okay. And as she goes down, Nick's alive. He's buck naked in the morgue, but he's alive. He's like, oh, what the hell happened here?
Bursts his way out of a body bag, a clear body bag.
Yes.
Which is terrifying when you think about that,
You wake up in a body bag?
Yeah, that's a little terrifying. We even get the little toe tag on him too. I'm like, wow, really? Attention to detail there.
Ah, thank you. You.
Yes.
Also, the dramatic attention to detail of how you can obviously tell they are CGIing abs on Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I mean, I know Tom Cruise is one of these guys that's really into keeping like in shape and looking good and trying to look young, but oh Lord. I would recommend people looking up this scene because you can so tell Tom Cruise's head is like CGI'd a little bit on like somebody else's body, or like
that body is jacked, and I'm like, that is not you under
shredded.
those clothes. No.
Yeah, and it's like it's really like weird.
I'm like, are you hulking out a little bit there?
Oh god, because like, don't get me wrong, like Tom Cruise, he goes above and beyond to try and like look good for his movies because he's a professional.
Yeah.
He's a crazy person, but he's a fucking professional.
Yeah.
But like, you can see the digital de-aging, and you can see the hard lines of where his neck and body are meeting, and I'm like, this is really awkward, dog.
Yeah.
But they discover Nick is alive, and he's like, well, I'm cursed by the mummy. Of course I'm alive, because fuck you, magic.
And now I can speak ancient Egyptian, and I understand these things, and I know more than you do.
And as that's happening, we now see where the mummy is. The mummy has crashed in some sort of like church area, yard or whatever, and she's sucking the life out of security guards and nameless people to revive herself and create zombie henchmen.
Yeah, which zombies.
I mean, that's the best part. They're not mummies, they're zombies.
They're zombies, yeah. And it's terrifying.
But she's alive, and this is the part where they're in the bar, and Dr. Halsey reinstates the plot, so everyone's caught up in case you missed the opening.
And you've got Nick that's drinking the bar.
Yeah, Nick's drinking the bar, and Nick sees Vail over at the bar.
And this is where we begin our American Werewolf in London bit.
Yeah, because now Vail is like, I'm cursed now, and because I died, and because of her, you're cursed. Now we're going to reenact American Werewolf in London, where I'm going to chime in and be like goofy to you because I'm Jake Johnson, and I'm a really funny comedic actor.
Yeah.
And you're Tom Cruise, and really don't fit in this, but fuck it, I'm here to carry the scene. And this feels weird, right?
Yeah.
This is like bordering on like too comedic for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's parts where it's like, ooh, we're serious, and then it's a little too slapsticky. Yeah, and then you just see all the other movie references that they're just trying to pull into this one movie, and it's like, well, I thought this was your kickoff to the dark universe. I thought this was going to be its own beast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, I'm able to pull from so many other movies. This is kind of...
Thought you'd be a little bit more original with your
yeah,
concepts.
More original, more organic.
And don't be wrong, I love American Werewolf in London.
Me too.
One of my favorites.
We've met David.
We did. And it's like, this is just such a weird thing to insert in this movie. And like, I get it. You wanted to keep Vail around because he's your... comedic relief in your trilogy of, or in, like, maybe not trilogy, your trinity of your action characters. You have Tom Cruise, Nick, playing the action hero. You have Doc Halsey playing the I know what's going on here and I'm gonna direct the plot. And then you have, you know, Vail, who's supposed to be the comedic relief, leaving tension. I was like, why isn't he like revived as a zombie and now he is like the main hench person for the mummy? And now Nick's motivation is like, well, I'm cursed, but I gotta save my buddy Vail. Yeah. Like, he shouldn't be doing this. He's like corrupted by the mummy. That would have been a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, he could be Benny.
He could be Benny, right? I think that would have been a lot more interesting. Granted, you lose like the trinity of comedy, or the trinity there in the comedy bit, but at least it would have made the plot more interesting, and it would give Nick a little bit more motivation than, well, I'm Tom fucking Cruise. Of course I'm going to save the world.
And of course I'm going to break this curse.
Of course I'm going to break this curse. It's like, no, I have to save my friend, you know? Like, yeah, and like, if she kills me, then she, you know, Seth walks the earth, but I got to make some sacrifices for the, you know, the people close to me. Like, that would work more with this plot, but we digress.
Yes.
Because now we find out that the mummy is growing stronger. She's getting a whole army, and Nick is going a little crazy. And we then figure out, like, the mummy, she needs the jewel to complete her ritual when she, like, manages to corner Nick, because Nick's, like...
yeah, because the jewel goes into...
the dagger, right?
The dagger. You know, you can't use it without the jewel. So it's this search, you know, okay, we found the dagger, now we have to find the jewel.
Yeah, and the whole thing is, like, she's in Nick's head. Like, she's able to, like, subconsciously draw Nick to her. Like, what is it? Like, they're at the graveyard, and Nick and Doc Halsey tried to drive away. And he's like, there's a freeway here, a highway here, I can get out of here. And he just ends up driving in a circle. And he's
back to the church where she is.
And he's like, I don't know why I did this.
And Jenny's like, because, you know, she's in your head. Duh.
And then we get the chase through the woods, and it's a thing where it's like, I get what they're trying to do here. Like, Nick's not responsible for his stuff, and the mummy's drawn to him, and there's this whole, like, oh, she wants you, and this weird love sex element, and all those, like, weird cringy flashbacks where you
taking you to the desert.
Taking to the desert. Or when you see, what's the actress who plays the mummy? Because she's, like, a really good actress. She's in, like, Kingsman, Climax. She's in a bunch of movies. But I forget her name.
Me too. I even forget the mummy's name. I mean...
she's Princess something. Yeah.
It's Sophia Boutella?
Okay. So the cringy scenes when you see Sophia Boutella, like, straddling Tom Cruise in the weird desert flashbacks.
Or even in the church.
Yes.
When she's ready to sacrifice him and she's, you know, up on the altar, up on top of him.
And she's, like, licking his abs. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is, like, I'm feeling real. This is, like, rapey shit, honestly. Like, this is just so uncomfortable. And, like, don't get me wrong. Really good actress. She's playing this creepy, like mummy thing. Great. But it's really, really off-putting when I see her licking Tom Cruise's abs like there's whipped cream on there.
Yeah. And you know that man probably hasn't eaten whipped cream in, like, 40 years.
Gotta stay cut.
You gotta stay ripped.
Gotta stay cut up, you know. That CGI, you know, can only go so far. But they do the chase through the woods, and they're like, oh, we need to get the jewel, because if we break the jewel, we break the curse. And
another crash scene.
And yeah, they do a big old crash, and right when it all is gonna seem lost, like, SWAT, quote unquote, shows up. All like they come in, they trank everybody, they manage to capture the mummy, which I didn't know it was that easy.
who knew that we had, common tranquilizers to bring down an ancient mummy?
Who knew? Who knew?
If only they had that for Emotep.
Exactly.
Would have been a faster process.
Oh, just like a couple of ludes, and he would have gone right out. But, and I think it's so fucking dumb that they were like, well, we just have guns, and we're like some paramilitary special stuff, and we can do anything, and we captured a 5,000-year-old mummy with
no biggie.
With no biggie, right? But this is when, Nick wakes up and we see what the SWAT team actually is. They're part of this monster containment unit. We see the monster lab with all the references you love to see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we get the walkthrough because, they had to bring in Tom Cruise in a straitjacket because who knows what power he's capable of.
Oh, yeah.
He keeps dying, but he keeps coming back.
Exactly. And we get to see references to the
Dracula
with the skull, the Gill Man with the hand.
The Gill Man arm, yeah.
Well, was there another reference in the lab? Just the lab specifically?
There is a reference in the lab, but that happens during the fight.
Okay.
But I mean, the big reference we get because, we have the mummy that is now trapped in there. They're, pumping mercury into her to weaken her. But we've got another monster that's in the lab.
Yes, we finally get to meet Russell Crowe's character in earnest, the one who gave us the great voiceover in the beginning, or maybe not great, but at least it was fun. Mm-hmm. We meet Dr. Henry Jekyll, also known as Jekyll and Hyde, and I love this so much.
Were you tee-hee-hing?
A little. There was a T, maybe not a hee-hee, but there was definitely a T. Because, okay, for anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Jekyll, I think it's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the original title. That is, my favorite book. That's probably the first book I read as a kid that made me oh no, books can be cool.
Yeah.
And granted, if you read that book now, you're like, fucking weirdo. But no, I really liked that book. I thought it was really interesting, this dichotomy of, good and evil. It's also a book you can really read in the idea of drug addiction or this is how obsession can distance you from those closest to you. It's a very good book. I really love it. And Russell Crowe, he's a really good actor.
He is.
I'm like, Russell Crowe, you were in Gladiator. I liked you in The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling. You're one of those people I've seen in Cinderella Man. You're a good, solid actor.
Yeah.
Can be kind of a dick sometimes, but hey, you have great taste in watches. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in. I'm in. And also, he knows what fucking movie he's in.
And he does a great performance as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yes, and okay. We're going to get to the fight scene where I'm like, this is where I know Russell Crowe is perfect for this, but before that, we see what's going on. So the mummy is being injected with all this mercury because she's going to be dissected, and they try and have us give sympathy to the mummy.
And it's Jenny, too. You said you were going to study her, and he goes, well, that's how we're going to study her. We're going to kill her and then, figure out what makes her, cool mummy lady.
Why on God's green earth is Jenny and Nick... Okay, Nick I get because Nick is still well, I'm cursed by her and I have this weird attraction to her and she has this power over me. But Jenny should be yo, Nick, she killed a lot of fucking people and she real fucking evil. Yeah, no, maybe we should dissect her. And also, up to this point, we've seen her only as pure evil.
Yeah.
Literal, I killed my infant brother in the crib, evil.
Yeah.
I need you to feel sorry for me.
I think Jenny not only, feels empathy towards her, but I think it's also, this is a living, breathing person that was around, in the ancient Egyptian days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jenny she's a...
archaeologist, Egyptologist. It's never just defined. She's a scientist of many talents.
That's one thing I don't like about the movie is they don't kind of, explain who these characters are. So it's you're kind of just grasping at straws. But I think Jenny more is this is the opportunity to actually talk to somebody from this time and learn all the things that we've only speculated about. And I think that's what she wants is, to have a conversation. And, Ahmanet, that's who the female mummy's called.
Yeah,
I think,
Princess Ahmanet, I think is how it's pronounced.
And she's like, She goes, "You will learn these things when I kill you."
Okay. Okay. See, I like that when,
Yeah.
the prince, when she's talking to her in like ancient Egyptian, which I'm like, honey, great learning ancient Egyptian. I don't know who you're practicing with, but good on you.
And I love the mummy's like, yeah, English is such an easy language, but I got you.
Yeah. And they start talking in English because fuck subtitles. And she's like, the only reason you really want to know what I saw on the other side.
But what's behind the veil?
What's behind the veil of death? And she's like, yes, yes. And she's like, oh, you'll find out when I kill you. Evil laugh ensues. But I'm like, okay, well, that's an interesting motivation for her. If she was like, oh, why, if they asked, why do you study this stuff or whatever, and she could be like, because that's like a really human thing of like, I'm afraid of dying. I don't know what's on the other side. Like, that's a human thing.
I'm curious.
Right?
What is there?
And it could be a thing where she could have said, oh, well, my uncle or brother or whatever, my uncle Victor was obsessed with death, and after something like that would have been hilarious.
My great grandfather
Victor von Frankenstein was obsessed with death, and
he had a girlfriend, and she was kind of crazy when he passed.
But I thought that would have been like really hilarious if it turns out Dr. Halsey is like a descendant of Frankenstein, and like that's why she's obsessed with death, and that's why she's like, you just want to know what's on the other side. She's like, yes, it's a curse in my family, death, our obsession.
She's like,
that would have been. She's like, yeah, funny.
She's like, even my grandfather Frederick, he was really interested too. It was a family thing.
A Frederick Frankenstein.
Frederick.
See, like that again. I'm hard memes on that one, but if you're gonna do a dark universe, fucking like whip the dick out on the table and say, here's what we're fucking doing. If you made her like, okay, I'm
a Frankenstein,
or something, or like that, or maybe that's the thing. Like Jekyll's like. Or when Jekyll is explaining to Nick why she is there, and she's like, well, she's been part of the blah blah, and we recruited her. He could have been like, well, her family's, they are not monsters, but they are the creators of monsters, and all that. Like that would have given brouhaha. That would have been funny. But like when that's going on, then we, they're uncovering the jewel in the tombs or whatever that we saw in the beginning of the movie
with the Crusaders,
and right in this moment, because we need an action scene.
Yes.
But also when Russell Crowe gives Nick a drink and says, welcome to a new world of gods and monsters.
And I was just like, ah.
Say what you will, Russell Crowe delivers the line at least well.
He does. And then we see it being given through a reflection.
Yeah.
So it's like, so who's telling you that? Is it Jekyll that's telling you? Or is it Hyde that's welcoming you?
Jekyll or Hyde. And this is in like the mummy, now that she can sense the jewel because it's been uncovered, she's like trying to break out, but Nick is preoccupied because Hyde has arrived. Because Dr. Jekyll, he's trying to do this injection to like save himself.
Yeah,
but
we've seen this at least 2 times in the movie so far, so how often is he injecting himself to keep Hyde down?
It's probably like every few hours or some such thing. He needs to do it when the plot demands it. That's what it is.
And that's what we're getting. And we get Tom Cruise, and he's like, no, fuck your medicine that you need. I'm going to hold the syringes, and you're going to tell me things. And I'm like, homie, you don't want to do that. You want to let him, take the medicine.
Yeah, because, like, Nick's like, I don't want to die to stop this curse and blah, blah, blah. And Jekyll's like, no, I need that shit. Like, I really need this shit. And then
you'll be sorry.
And then the henchmen are like, oh, he's turning, let's get the fuck. And the henchmen take everyone out and leave Nick and now Mr. Hyde in the room. And now we get why Russell Crowe is great in this movie.
Oh yeah.
When he turns into not Edward Hyde, but Eddie Hyde. And he is chewing the scenery. He is goofy as fuck.
And he's, let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal. Come on. You become the god of the dead, the raiser of evil, and you have your old buddy here, Eddie Hyde, watching your back. And it's so goofy and dumb, and I loved every second of it because it's the only part of the movie where I thought, okay, we finally have somebody who understands the movie they're in.
Yes.
They're not in a they're not in a giant tear the house down blockbuster action flick. They're not in we're a serious horror film trying to do homages. They're not in The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. They're not in fucking Endgame. They're in The Mummy. They're here to be, we're going to be a little goofy, a little tongue-in-cheek, and we're going to try and have you guys have a good time as we dance around in our monster costumes, and we're going to try and do these...
It's a monster mash.
Exactly. And, like, that's the thing. The Universal Monster movies, like, okay, the Universal Monster films, for the most part, they're not scary movies. They're fun, kind of campy. They're a little spooky. Like, you go, if you're going to watch any of them now, you're going to watch and be like, that's kind of goofy. Okay, that's a little spooky, you know. None of them are like...
But if you're going to, if you want to do funny, then you do Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where you get a whole batch of the monsters in one film.
You do any of the James Whale ones, Frankenstein, Bride, Invisible Man. Even like that's the thing. They are turning the Dark Universe, I think's intention was to make action films with these horror characters involved.
The horror icons.
The horror icons. Maybe there'll be some horror elements. Like there's some part of like the mummy sucking the life out of it. I was like, okay, that's like scary. Oh, we're gonna have like a jump scare or two.
But you got to do it through the lips.
Exactly. You know, I'm like, that again. They were like, we have a hot female mummy in here walking around in her like tattered, you know, bandages. You might see tits, but
sucking the life out of people.
Sucking that life right out. Ugh, Jesus Christ! Somebody was horned up when they were writing this.
Very much. But we get to the main fight scene, and one of the, I mean, I know you know what my favorite part of the fight scene is, but one that was unexpected for me is when Tom Cruise is running to the door to get out, and he's like, you know what? Let me use his hand so I can unlock the door. And right off the bat, it reads E-hide, and it cancels out the opening or unlocking the door. And I'm like,
because before he doesn't, it's like H Jekyll, and now it's E-hide. I'm like, oh, they know. Oh, that's so cool.
So it's like, you know, it's something very small, but it's like, it works. And you've got Hyde that's just laughing and laughing, and he goes, they know not to let me out.
It's so much fun is this fight scene, and it's the only part of the movie that I think I actually enjoyed, and it's only because it is campy and dumb, and Russell Crowe is having a great time.
He's chewing the scenery.
He's chewing the fuck out of it, and people are gonna say, yeah, but it's so bad. I'm like, yes, but at least it has personality.
It does, and then it has my favorite Easter egg, because Jenny... She goes in through one of the doors that hasn't locked yet.
She's trying to release Nick from the room with Hyde.
Because she knows who Hyde is, and Nick does, and she's trying to save him. And we have one of the other henchmen that follows her, and he's like, you know, Jenny, don't do it. And they're fighting in this big library that's separated, and it's like soundproof.
Yeah.
So you've got two fights going on at the same time. And she's being thrown around, trying to break open the glass. And then she picks up the Book of the Living, the gold book, the book from... The Mummy 99. And then she smacks the dude in the face with it.
See, I was like, oh, that's a cool little Easter egg. And in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. Did the O'Connells exist in this universe? Are we going to retroactively call those part of the Dark Universe? Because if we did, at least that gives a little bit more pedigree to it.
Was that Nick's, you know, maybe grandparents?
That would have been interesting. Again, it's a whole kettle of fish that also he'd probably be like their son or late stage son, because Tom Cruise is like 58 in this movie.
Who knows what age he is in this movie, but he could have been like, oh, you know, I come from a long family of treasure hunters and explorers.
Yeah.
And then, you know, nod to the O'Connells.
It would have been funny because what is it in Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, like Rick has like they give him the fountain of youth water so he, you know, doesn't die alive. It would have been hilarious if, you know, they did the end credits, like the Avengers stinger, where you see where it's like, you know, oh, Nick's like in a bar somewhere, you know, and you know, somebody calls out, it's like, hey, the name's Rick O'Connell. I got a job for you, but you might know me as Van Helsing. Because it would have been funny if it's like, oh, because Rick's now an immortal, he's, he's going around fighting these villains or whatever in post, like, I guess World War II, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that would have been funny if it's like, oh, Brendan Fraser comes back and his whole shtick is he is still Rick O'Connell, but he goes by the alias
Van Helsing.
Of Van Helsing, like 007, right? Like that's the theory that all the 007 actors are different James Bonds and that's just a code name. That would have been funny if, oh, Van Helsing's a code name. He was the original fighter of Dracula, and he's like, when I die, I hand my alias to an apprentice to keep fighting these fights and all these other things. Like, oh, Jekyll and Hyde, he's running like the evil monster organization, but Van Helsing is fighting like the good monster organization. That, again, the promises of the Dark Universe not made and not kept.
So many opportunities.
But in this, the fight's happening. Nick finally gets the upper hand and subdues Hyde, and he's out of the movie forever.
Forever, and then this is where the movie really picks up.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time left in the movie.
Yeah, and it's also a thing where the mummy finally gets loose, and she's like, I'm gonna go and get the jewel and complete my ritual because look how fucking cool I am. Buy my action figure. And they have God, you remember there was like action figures and the whole toy line related to this?
Oh yeah, I mean, I still wish. I know it's still available. Some people have them, like Jimmy's, Frankensons. They still have like the mummy stuff.
Oh, the OG ones?
The action figures, the Rick O'Connell doll. So I'm gonna try to hunt those down.
Good luck with that. But as you're hunting those down, they are racing through the subway tunnels trying to get to the tomb of the Crusaders?
Yeah, the one that's beneath the water. Because at this point, they found the one that's above land and the one that's, buried under the water.
Yeah, and that's where the jewel is, and they're racing to get the jewel so they can break the jewel and break the curse, or the mummy can get the jewel and complete the curse.
And then we get, one of the creepier scenes, all the zombies in the tube.
Yeah.
And they're moving fast.
Yes, we get fast zombies. We get also the part where they get under the water and Nick's trying to swim away,
and then you see the tombs start to open and they're coming out of the graves, and like it's very Thriller.
Yeah, like again, this is where the part where, oh, this is like all the action stuff's coming in for the third act, big climax stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can turn my brain off and enjoy this.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of keeps going.
Yeah.
It keeps going. And then we finally get to like the tomb, right? We get the mummy has gotten the jewel. Dr. Halsey has been drowned and she's dying. And Tom Cruise is like,
she dead.
She is dead.
She's floating.
Yeah.
They all float.
They all float down here. But yeah, so Doc Halsey is like dead, and Nick is like, oh no, I can't believe this. And they're having the final showdown. The mummy versus Scientologist Tom Cruise. Xenu versus Set, who will win? And don't sue me, Scientology. I'm making this as a joke, and it's parody. Don't do it. But they're having their showdown, and she's like, and Nick finally gets the dagger away from her, right?
Yeah, because she's just trying to get him to obey. She's been in his head, so it's like finally it's like give up, give in, let me, fully take over.
Give up, begin, let me begin, try to have me, and it's just, sorry, jump around, House of Pain.
Yes.
Go listen to it at St. Patrick's Day.
So, he gets the dagger, and she's like, damn thief, I was taking this shit. And, he's, takes one strong hit to the ground with the dagger, it starts to break, and then she goes, wait. You could be a god. You could be a god among men. You could, be the ruler of death, bring people back to life. And he's like, I could bring Jenny back to life, though.
Yep. Then he stabs himself, so he completes the ritual and makes himself this walking god of death and mummy god. And then he kills the mummy proper. And then he raises Dr. Halsey back by turning into a thing, by turning into a bad CGI.
I know, I was trying to figure out what he looked like, because he had, needle teeth. So I was like...
He looks like how they make vampires look in Supernatural.
Yeah. So something similar of that. And it's a... wake up, because he's just so frustrated. He's just like, wake up. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And then we see Doc Halsey.
There's no manual when you become set.
And we see where Doc Halsey is. She's in a shampoo commercial, and then she wakes up from the Vail, and she's like, oh, so that's what it is. I'm in a Chanel commercial in the afterlife.
And he's like, I really could have had the Book of the Living with me right now.
Goddamn.
That might explain so much more.
Oh, Lord. But Dr. Halsey is saved from the afterlife, and she's like, oh, Nick, please don't go. And he's like, no, I have to go because I'm a monster now.
Whilst he's in the shadows.
Yes, because,
what we do in the shadows.
Exactly. And then you get the whole, like, he disappears into the darkness as, the SWAT people come back and they rescue Halsey. And we get the voiceover, and we're like, I don't know where he is now, but wherever he is ushered in a new world of gods and monsters. And we see Nick.
And he could be our greatest ally.
Our greatest ally. And we see Tom Cruise has raised Vail, Jack Johnson, and they're like the dynamic duo again, back in action. And he's like...
And he's covered up the entire time. We just see his eyes.
Yeah. And
so it's like, who is he? Has he transformed?
Is he a true monster now? But he's like, Jack's, Vail is like, hey, thanks for raising me from the dead and everything like that, but
Hey, man, that was really cool.
That was really cool. Thanks for raising me from the dead, but, why are we all out here? And Nick's like, simple Vail. Always questioning the call to adventure. And they,
his black stallion.
On his black stallion. They ride off into the desert, and the sandstorm's coming behind, and at that moment, I'm like, fuck you, movie. I know I've been like, it sounds like we've been really positive for the whole third like action climax, but at that
we were just really excited for that the Russell Crowe fight scene.
Yeah, but in that moment I'm like, fuck you, movie. You're really gonna try and sequel bait me out here, call out a cinematic universe?
Because this was the beginning to the dark universe. Of course they were gonna leave it with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, okay. So I guess laying it out on the table, cards all the way out, the dark universe, this was going to be their launching point. We said in the beginning, but the promises made for this movie.
Yes.
What were the promises made?
Promises made were we were going to get The Bride of Frankenstein, I think, next.
Yes, which starring Angelina Jolie. Javier Bardem was supposed to be the actual monster.
Yeah, he was going to be Frankenstein, and then we were going to get The Invisible Man with Johnny Depp. We had this whole, Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's the Monster Cinematic Universe. And with this one, tanked at the box office.
Yeah, I have the numbers here.
Okay.
The budget is rough. They gave me a weird thing. It's between 125 and 195 million. I'm rounding it. I'll say 150 million.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It only made 410 million.
Yeah.
Which, if you're wondering, listeners out there, the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor made exactly 5 million more, and also cost a little less than 150 million. Yeah, like this is, I believe, the lowest grossing mummy film of the franchise, if you count this as part of the original or the 99 franchise, because it's the reboot. But yeah, this one made the least amount of money. Granted, 410 million, but a lot of that was like foreign markets. It took a while to get there. It's also one of these movies that critically no one really liked.
Yeah, I mean, it's an entertaining movie, but not if you think of it in the universe of Universal Monsters.
And even then, it's entertaining in
that one scene.
Everything else is, again, this is the definition of middle of the road blockbuster action. The plot's really simple. It gets restated every 20 minutes so you don't lose your place. It's it's not bad in production. Everything is competently set up and made, but none of it is feeling inspired. None of it feels like, oh, somebody loved this material and is trying to bring it to life. It's made by a studio.
It's made by a studio. I mean, there were a lot of promises, and seeing the lead up that was going to happen after this movie, which eventually would have given us kind of like a Monster Squad movie where all the monsters come together. So I imagine that Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll would have been like our Nick Fury,
Mhm.
bringing the team together.
The other see, there's the problem, I guess, in concept with this dark universe is, and we see this in I guess the Invisible Man movie that actually did come out that's not part of the dark
But it's
universe.
so good.
Very good, very good. But these movies, because when you really hunker down on the dark universe and the universal monsters, is in their classic iterations, they are the villains. They are the
Yes.
bad guys. And you don't, the only ones you feel sympathy for are maybe like Frankenstein, maybe the Wolfman,
The Bride.
the Bride. Like, you feel sympathetic towards them,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, they're the bad guys. They're the villains.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have an entire cinematic universe based around literal villains, monsters, where they're gonna be trying to turn into anti-heroes, and you're gonna have them try and fight what? Who is the bigger bad of Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman? Like, who is their bad villain? Because traditionally, it's like Van Helsing.
Yeah.
It's like, a doctor this or something this, but it's who what was their big overall plan? They're gonna be like, oh, we're gonna get together and fight Dracula because Dracula's the main villain. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't heard that one before. Or we're gonna
Monster Squad.
yeah, or we're gonna fight we're gonna fight these children and teenagers in suburban California because Monster Squad. Or like Dr. Jekyll was gonna turn and he's gonna be Edward Hyde, and now they have to band together to fight Edward Hyde or that. It's one of those things.
Or it's gonna turn into Grimm.
Or turn into that show,
I love Grimm.
It's gonna turn into League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's like,
Mhm.
oh yes, James Moriarty is still alive, and he's the Napoleon of crime, and he's going to tear you all asunder. Yeah, in the heart of it, the Dark Universe promise, I don't think could have been kept in a
No.
cinematic universe they wanted, but I really wish they committed and just tried to make maybe more modest budgeted straight horror films
Yep.
that involve the universal monsters, because the Invisible Man showed that no, this works.
It's possible. It is very, very possible and doable to do it in this day and age and make the story unique compared to the original movie, which was very, groundbreaking for its time, really great plot, but you bring it to a modern setting and it worked.
It did. And they understood, like, okay, the Invisible Man, you will make him the villain, we'll switch the dynamic of
Mhm.
who's the good person, who's the bad person. We'll make it something more about like this gaslighting, this whole thing
Mhm.
of this paranoia, relationships like that.
An abusive
An
relationship.
abusive relationship. Like, that movie understood the monster, understood how you can invert it on the original and make it something new and fresh, and that movie worked. What could they have done? And the other thing is, that movie, small budget, I think it only cost like 10 million to make.
I think so.
It's like not that expensive, and it was done by Blumhouse, and they're like, we're gonna make it a straight horror movie. People love horror movies. Make it a modest budget. Make it something that we know is gonna work. You can, as long as it's, and also if it's a lower budget, you can be more creative with it,
Yeah.
because you don't have all this money breathing down your neck saying, you look, if you don't make Avengers Endgame, then this movie's gonna crash and your career's over.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where I'm like, God damn it, just make competent horror movies with these characters and you'll make your money and it will work. If you try and combine them later, good for you, but understand the formula by which these were designed for.
Yep.
But, the promises of the Dark Universe.
So many promises.
Do you have any big thoughts on this movie?
I mean, I love the Easter eggs. I think it could have been done better, plot-wise. Even some of the actors, I don't think that Tom Cruise was the right fit for our lead character to crusade into the Dark Universe. But I mean, they were spot on when they landed Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Best part of the movie.
Best part of the movie. I think they really needed someone, not Tom Cruise, not with that, he is his own character. It's like, we need somebody that can, really embody this treasurer, rugged, kind of a soldier, but not really a soldier.
A little bit of a wise ass, but
Mhm.
he's a good guy. He's a kind of a roguish type, but he's not going to backstab you.
Yeah. A Chris Pratt.
A Chris Pratt, Nathan Fillion comes to mind.
Nathan Fillion would have been great. And he could have pulled off being Rick O'Connell's grandson or great-grandson if they want to tie it into that universe.
They also, I mean, like, even Mark Wahlberg might even be a little bit better suited for this. Granted, you would have him being, like, really Boston in this movie.
That's what I was going to say. I keep thinking of his accent.
You keep thinking
there's mummy? What?
he's like, yo, there's a mummy over there. Yeah, right over there by the car. Yeah, it's really funny because people think, yeah, he's from Boston, but people think he has the Boston accent from Departed, and that's just how he talks. I'm like, no, he's got like a light Boston accent. Like, you know, he's regional dialect, but he can drop it, right?
Yeah.
Watch Boogie Nights, people.
You love Boogie Nights.
It's a really good movie. It's really good. Hard to recommend. But, you know, but there's like, I can think of 5 or 6 actors that are probably a better fit for this role.
Yeah, because you want somebody that, you know, that's going to be there for the follow-up films. You know, you need somebody that we're getting the team together. You know, we're starting that.
Yeah, and I think it's a thing where Tom Cruise is. Granted, Tom Cruise has more money than God, and he's been in the Mission Impossible movies. He's Top Gun Maverick, made so much money.
They brought it back to the theater. It helped revive the theater.
Yeah, like he's also been a movie star for like 30 years at this point, like A-list, high-level movie star. He worked with Kubrick in 99, and I think that's the thing. He's like, oh, I could have been in this like cult classic that made a bunch of money in The Mummy 99.
He was in Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, also there's a lot of good Tom Cruise performances. He's not a bad actor. He's a little limited, but he knows what he's good at.
Yeah, I love his movies. I love the Mission Impossible movies, War of the Worlds. It's just I felt like they could have used somebody that was maybe more of a character actor.
Somebody who just wasn't this A-list, I know my personality and I'm going to rewrite the movie to make my style work.
Somebody that is able to create characters and can move on to other movies and turn into a completely different character.
Yeah. I think it's the sad part is that Tom Cruise missed out on being in The Mummy in 99. He missed out on being Iron Man in 2008.
Yeah.
And this might have been his thing of, man, I missed out on being the linchpin of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He missed out on being the cult classic, beloved action hero of The Mummy.
But Robert Downey Jr. does such a great job as Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Yes, but here's the thing. I don't think Tom Cruise cares about that. I think Tom Cruise was annoyed that he wasn't able to be that level of iconic. And this was his attempt of trying to be that level of iconic, to be the linchpin of a new cinematic universe, because it's Tom Cruise and he doesn't half-ass anything. He probably wanted this to be bigger than the MCU, bigger than everything.
Yeah, I mean,
and it just failed.
But I mean, he has his own cinematic universe with Mission Impossible. There's how many Mission Impossible movies?
Well, those are like he's the main star of a franchise, but in Mission Impossible, huge franchise, and again after this movie in 2017. He's only gone on to make solid, big, awesome Mission Impossible movies that just, you know, top the next one and all that, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But I think he wanted to be like, I want a giant Robert Downey Jr. level contract. I want to be somebody that is so tied into this massive pop culture bubble. It's like, I can go to anywhere in any country and be, you know, a walking god. I want kids in, you know, Nick, whatever my last name is, costumes for Halloween. He wants to be this level of beloved that Robert Downey Jr. is because he's Iron Man.
And Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell.
And yeah, exactly. And I think his attempt was this movie, and then it didn't work. And then he's like, I'm going back to the well, doing my Mission Impossible movies. What is it? Ghost Protocol and all that stuff. Those came out after. And then goes back to the well even harder with Top Gun Maverick, which makes more money than God. And I think he's just figured out that I don't want to try and go out of my wheelhouse again to try and chase anything. He knows what he's good at. He knows what he can make. And he's just going to be making those from now on. And that also means we're probably never going to get another Dark Universe movie any time soon.
No, I mean, you know, there's not rumblings, you know, there's actual confirmation of things that are going to come out. Ryan Gosling is going to be in the Wolfman movie. There's a Dracula movie that's either in pre-production or they're in production right now. Guillermo del Toro said he's finally going to do his monster universe where he's going to tackle Frankenstein and the Bride, and
let's be honest, Guillermo del Toro just wants to make a Frankenstein movie so fucking bad.
And I trust him with all my heart. That man loves Frankenstein the Bride, and I think he's the perfect person to hand it off to, because he would do it the most authentic.
Yes, and the other thing is, like, I think everyone knows, it's like, look, if you want to just make a Monsters universe, give Del Toro like fucking $1 billion, he'll make you a fucking Monsters universe.
He made his own version of the Gill Man, and it won, the Academy Award.
Exactly, and I think it's a thing where the pattern you want to do. You give it to Del Toro, he'll make you all the fans will get behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to be like, no, he respects his material. Everyone knows that. This is perfect. Yeah, no one will have an argument with it. But the commitment to it is the problem, because, Universal, better for worse, they're a business, and they don't want to blow $400 or $200 million on a movie and have it be for the fans and not able to hit a mass audience and sell it.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, Del Toro's in the Mountain of Madness film, the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, really isn't going to get made, because it's going to cost too much money, and it's made for people like Dean, who loves like Call of Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft and all that shit. But like, there ain't a lot of me out there that's going to make a $200 million budget back.
You never know.
That's true. But, we can only hope for the best in the future. But right now, what were your final thoughts on The Mummy?
This Mummy?
Yeah, so 2017.
It's a fun movie. For what it is, I'm gonna stick with that fight scene is the best fight scene of the film, best scene of the film. Love the Easter eggs. Could have been better. It could have, been worked out a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd call this, we give this qualification to movies of fine and fun.
Yeah. Movies
that aren't great, they're not bad. Like, Mummy Returns is fine and fun. There's nothing bad about it. It's a lot of fun. It knows what it is. It's good. I
will put it in great.
I know. But this I would qualify as okay and fun enough.
Yeah.
It's watchable. You're not going to hate it at the end. It might be a little dumb, but it's fucking like 2 hours that you could put on the background and kind of forget about. It's fine. Like, if I had to give it a rating, it'd be like a 2.5 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5. It is middle of the road. I didn't love anything about it. I didn't hate anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay at best for me. And then the Jekyll and Hyde fight is definitely the best part of the movie, like by far. It's not even close. At least Russell Crowe is having a good old time shooting some scenery.
Yes.
But what are we doing next week?
Well, next week we have a little PSA, and we're going to take an impromptu break.
Yes, we did plan to have an episode released. It was going to be a tie-in to the Mummy spin-off movies, the Scorpion King, but unfortunately technical difficulties got in the way. We may or may not have forgotten to plug a mic in during a recording session.
Yeah, something might have happened, but so someday we'll come back to the Scorpion King. How could we not? He is a king.
He is the king. It's got The Rock, the people's champion with his millions.
And it's got the people's eyebrow.
Yes, it does. But unfortunately, we're going to not be able to do it next week. But we're going to take a break. But after that break, we're going to do some housekeeping there.
A brief break.
A brief break, just a week. We're going to come back with a whole new month and a whole new theme.
And this new month, new theme is all curated by Dean, and you guys pray for me all because it's going to be a rough one.
It's not going to be that bad because it's about America's favorite surrealist. It's going to be David Lynch month.
Ugh.
That's right. Yes. Why do you hate David Lynch so? He made Eraserhead, one of your favorite films.
No, it's not. This man will not give me closure.
Yes, but we're going to be doing Eraserhead, or not Eraserhead.
No, please no.
We're going to be doing David Lynch month. David Lynch, one of my favorite directors, and
one of your favorite people to impersonate.
I mean, you just gotta love a good David Lynch impression. It's like Jimmy Stewart, but a lot more weird. But here's the thing. One of my favorite directors, I think he's really interesting. He's made movies that are really weird and confusing, and I find them so engaging and interesting, and I can't wait to get into it. But don't worry, the first film of the month is probably his most normal movie. It's the movie that he was nominated for Best Director for. It's a movie that Mel Brooks helped produce.
Oh, okay.
It is The Elephant Man.
Yeah, definitely haven't seen it. I've seen your schedule for the month, and I've only seen one of these films.
And I am so excited.
So all month long, it's going to be brand new films for me. It's going to be all movies that Dean loves because it's his birthday month, so he is going to go to town.
Yes, I am.
And our first episode is a guest episode, I believe, correct?
It is a guest episode. The guest star is going to be a member of a previous podcast I was on, The Film Odyssey.
I was going to say, there's so many previous podcasts
I know. Oh, God. If anybody goes through our YouTube channel, they'll see some old ones. But yeah, my brother Randy is going to be on. He was on our Stalker episode. He was also on Page Master. Mm-hmm. And this is a movie that he went to the theater to go see with me.
Mm-hmm.
And
at the Frida, correct?
At the Frida. And I do not recall if he loved it or hated it. So I can't wait to get him to get him on that one. But where can they go to listen to that?
If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. You can like, comment, and subscribe there. Eventually, Dean will upload slideshow versions of this podcast so you can listen to it without watching it. But if you wanted to find out when we're uploading, what we're doing, or where we're going, you can check us out on our socials at
The Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and random adventures we go on.
And with that,
we're going back to Ahmanent.
No, we're not. We're going to Victorian era England.
No, not again.
Have a good week, everybody.